It was a cold evening, the kind that makes your teeth chatter and your fingers numb. The sky was gray and heavy, and a light drizzle had started to fall, making the air feel damp and even colder. Ethan hurried to the bus stop, pulling his thin jacket closer around him, wishing he had something warmer. It had been a long day of classes, followed by his part-time job at the cafe downtown. He was tired, but he needed to catch the bus to get home before the evening got any colder. When he reached the bus stop, he noticed her almost immediately. She was standing a little way off, her shoulders hunched as if trying to shield herself from the cold. Her coat looked too thin for the weather, and her hands were tucked tightly under her arms. She was shivering, her breath visible in the chilly air. Ethan's heart went out to her. He didn't know who she was or why she was waiting alone, but he felt an instinctive urge to help. Without thinking too much about it, he approached her. "Here, take my jacket," he said, holding it out to her. His voice was warm, but he tried to sound casual so he wouldn't make her feel embarrassed. The woman looked surprised. She hesitated for a moment, unsure what to say, and then accepted it with a small, grateful smile. "Thank you," she whispered. Her eyes met his briefly, and in that moment Ethan noticed something about her. There was a quiet dignity in the way she carried herself, even though she was cold and waiting alone. It wasn't arrogance, just a calm, composed presence that made her seem different from anyone else he had met at the bus stop. "It's nothing," Ethan said quickly. "I just didn't want you to be freezing." He felt a little awkward after saying it, but he didn't want to let the moment pass without showing kindness. Helping someone seemed like the right thing to do, and he didn't expect anything in return. They exchanged a few more words, small talk about the weather and the slow arrival of the bus. The conversation was simple, yet it felt natural, like two strangers who somehow understood a shared moment. Ethan noticed that she wasn't wearing gloves or a scarf, just that thin coat that did nothing against the wind and drizzle. He felt a pang of sympathy, wishing he could do more. When the bus finally arrived, she thanked him again, slipping off the jacket with a careful gesture that showed she appreciated it more than she could say. Ethan nodded, smiling, and stepped back to let her get on. She looked at him one last time, her eyes lingering with a quiet acknowledgement. Then she boarded the bus, leaving Ethan standing there, the drizzle still falling and the cold biting at his skin. Ethan didn't think much of it after that. He was used to helping people whenever he could. Small gestures like holding the door open for someone, carrying a heavy bag for a neighbor, or giving his seat to someone on the bus. It was just part of who he was. That evening, the act of giving his jacket felt natural, nothing extraordinary. He put his own jacket back on, climbed onto the bus, and found a seat near the window. The warmth of the bus interior slowly chased away the chill from his body. Little did he know, the woman he had helped was not an ordinary stranger. Her name was Vanessa, and she was the CEO of a successful tech company. She had spent the entire day in back-to-back meetings, dealing with stress, deadlines, and countless decisions that weighed heavily on her mind. Yet in that brief encounter at the bus stop, she felt something she rarely experienced. Genuine kindness from someone who had no idea who she was. Ethan didn't bow to her authority or flatter her. He simply helped because it was the right thing to do. Vanessa's ride home was uneventful, but her thoughts kept drifting back to Ethan. She had met countless people in her career, many of whom were polite for personal gain. But this young man's sincerity was different. She kept replaying the moment in her mind, the way he noticed she was cold, the way he offered his jacket without hesitation, the simplicity of his gesture. It left a warm feeling in her chest, a reminder that humanity still existed beyond the boardrooms and business deals. Meanwhile, Ethan's life continued in its usual rhythm. He had classes the next day, and then he would work another shift at the cafe to make ends meet. His schedule was packed, and most days felt like a blur of studying, working, and sleeping. Yet despite the exhaustion, he felt content in small ways. Helping others gave him a sense of purpose, even if the world often felt indifferent to his own struggles. He didn't expect recognition or reward. A simple smile or a thank you was enough. The bus ride home was quiet. Ethan stared out the window, watching the streetlights reflect on the wet pavement, lost in thought. He remembered the woman's smile, her eyes that held a mix of surprise and gratitude. For a brief moment, the world felt connected, like two strangers had shared a small but meaningful experience that neither would forget. He didn't know it yet, But that moment would ripple through both of their lives in ways neither of them could have imagined. By the time Ethan got home, he was tired and cold, but he carried a quiet satisfaction with him. He knew that even small acts of kindness could matter, even if he never saw the results. He set his jacket aside, made himself a simple dinner, and sat by the window listening to the rain tapping against the glass. He thought about his friends, his studies, and the endless challenges he faced, but he also felt a small spark of hope. Life was difficult, but moments like this reminded him that goodness still existed in the world. Vanessa, on the other hand, arrived home to a quiet, spacious apartment, the kind of place most people would consider a dream, yet she felt something more valuable than her luxury, the memory of a stranger's kindness. She removed her damp coat and wrapped herself in a warm blanket. Thinking about how rare it was to encounter someone so genuine, she wondered about his life, his struggles, and his dreams. Who was he? What motivated him to be kind without expecting anything in return? Her curiosity grew with each passing day, a quiet pull she couldn't ignore. For Ethan, that evening passed like any other, though he would occasionally remember the woman at the bus stop. For Vanessa, it was different. The encounter lingered in her mind, a spark of human warmth in a world often defined by ambition, deadlines, and expectations. It was a small moment, almost ordinary, yet it carried the weight of something extraordinary, a reminder that the simplest gestures could leave a lasting mark on another person's heart. Days passed, and life moved forward. Ethan continued to juggle work and studies, often exhausted but determined to make it through. Vanessa continued to lead her company, make decisions, and navigate the pressures of her position. Yet in the quiet moments between meetings, she found herself thinking about him, the young man who had offered his jacket without hesitation, the stranger who had reminded her that human kindness could still shine brightly in the most unexpected places. Ethan didn't know that his small act of warmth had caught the attention of someone influential, someone who could change the course of his life in ways he couldn't imagine. For him, it was just another day, another opportunity to help someone in need. But for Vanessa, it was a reminder of what truly mattered beyond titles, power, and wealth. A genuine human connection that transcended social boundaries. A moment of warmth on a cold, rainy evening that neither of them would ever forget. After that rainy evening, Vanessa couldn't stop thinking about the young man who had given her his jacket. She tried to push it out of her mind, telling herself it was just a small gesture from a stranger, something that happened every day in a city like theirs. But she kept remembering the way he had looked at her, not with fear or judgment, but with genuine concern. His eyes were kind and warm, and his voice had carried a sincerity that she rarely encountered. She wondered about his life, what he did, what kind of struggles he faced. She knew from experience that life wasn't always easy, and she had a feeling that he wasn't living a life of privilege. Vanessa was used to people flattering her, trying to gain favor, or using her influence to achieve their goals. It was part of being a CEO, part of navigating a world where power and wealth often created invisible walls between people. But this young man had none of that in his demeanor. He was humble, selfless, and considerate. It made her curious, and she admitted to herself, slightly hopeful. Could there really be someone like that in the city? Someone untouched by ambition or greed who simply acted out of kindness? The following days at work were busy. Vanessa had meetings back-to-back, projects to oversee, and decisions to make that affected hundreds of employees and clients. Still, between calls and emails, she found herself thinking about the young man at the bus stop. She didn't know his name, didn't even know if she would ever see him again, but she felt an unusual pull, a desire to know more about him. She mentioned the encounter to her assistant in passing, almost jokingly, describing the young man's kindness and how unusual it had felt. Her assistant listened and smiled, noticing the unusual excitement in Vanessa's tone. Meanwhile, Ethan's life went on as it always did. He had no idea that the woman he had helped was a CEO. To him, she was just another person standing in the rain, someone in need of a small kindness. He focused on schoolwork, part-time jobs, and the constant struggle to make ends meet. Life was challenging, but he found satisfaction in small victories. The completion of a difficult assignment, a good shift at the cafe, a smile from a customer he had helped. He never thought that a simple act of giving a jacket could have lasting significance. Back at her office, Vanessa began to think about ways to find him again. She wasn't looking to give him money or a job outright. That would feel wrong. She wanted to see the person behind the gesture, to understand his character, to see what motivated someone to act with such genuine kindness. She considered posting a message on social media or asking around the area near the bus stop, but she hesitated. She didn't want to make it seem like she was looking for praise or trying to impress anyone. This had to be authentic, a natural connection, not orchestrated. Days turned into weeks, and Vanessa's curiosity grew. She found herself walking past the bus stop during her lunch breaks, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. She would sometimes linger outside cafes near the stop, pretending to read or make calls, all while scanning for someone familiar. Every time she saw a young man hurrying past, she wondered if it was him, but no one matched the memory she had. She even asked the cafe staff if they recognized someone who worked part-time at night, but nothing came up. She felt a mix of frustration and intrigue. This wasn't just a passing thought anymore. It had become something she genuinely wanted to explore. Ethan, on the other hand, remained unaware of the effect that evening had on someone else's life. He continued his routine, going to school, studying, and working shifts. One afternoon, after finishing a particularly tiring shift at the cafe, he sat on a park bench near the bus stop to rest. The drizzle had stopped, leaving behind a misty, cool air. He watched the city move around him, people hurrying to their destinations, drivers honking impatiently, and streetlights reflecting on the wet pavement. He thought about the small act of helping someone and felt a quiet sense of fulfillment. It was a reminder that even in a busy and different city, small acts of care could make a difference, even if only for a brief moment. Vanessa, still searching for a way to reconnect, decided to try a different approach. She reached out to a community organization she often supported, one that helped young people with scholarships and mentorship programs. She asked if they knew of any young men who were hardworking, kind-hearted, and in need of guidance or support. She framed it in a general way, not revealing her connection to the bus stop encounter because she wanted to ensure that the process felt fair and unbiased. The organization listened and agreed to keep an eye out, noting Vanessa's interest and the qualities she valued. Meanwhile, Ethan's life began to take a small turn of its own. One day, while helping a regular customer at the cafe, he overheard a conversation about a scholarship program for students in need. He was curious and asked a few questions, discovering that the program could potentially help him with tuition fees and living expenses. He felt a spark of hope, thinking that maybe things were beginning to change, even if slowly. Little did he know, Vanessa's inquiries had set the wheels in motion for this very opportunity. Despite their separate paths, a subtle connection had formed between Ethan and Vanessa, even without words exchanged since that rainy evening. Vanessa's thoughts often drifted to him, imagining what his daily life must be like, wondering about his struggles and his dreams. She admired his resilience and the simplicity of his kindness, and she began to hope that life would present a way for their paths to cross again naturally. Ethan, on the other hand, reflected on the fleeting moments of connection in his life, the smiles from strangers, the brief conversations with co-workers, the small gestures of help he both gave and received. He didn't seek recognition, but he valued authenticity, the moments when human kindness shone through. The memory of the woman at the bus stop occasionally surfaced, a reminder that even strangers could impact our lives in ways we might not realize. Weeks later, Vanessa decided to act, but carefully. She didn't want to overwhelm him or make it seem like charity. She arranged for one of her foundation's programs to identify students who were deserving of a scholarship and mentorship. The criteria were based on character, effort, and need, not social standing or prior connections. She trusted that the process would eventually bring him into the circle, even if she didn't know his identity yet. It was her way of creating an opportunity without imposing her own presence prematurely. For Ethan, life continued in its demanding rhythm. Balancing classes, work, and personal life was exhausting, but he persisted. He occasionally thought about the bus stop incident, recalling the relief in the woman's eyes when he handed her the jacket. It was a small act, but it felt significant to him because it represented a simple principle he lived by. Help others when you can, without expecting anything in return. He didn't realize that principle had already captured the attention of someone who could potentially change the course of his life. As Vanessa continued her search through the foundation, she often reflected on what had drawn her to Ethan's gesture. It wasn't just the jacket, not really. It was the authenticity behind it, the unassuming nature of his kindness, the way he treated someone without needing recognition or reward. In her world, surrounded by ambition and transactional relationships, this was rare. She realized that people like Ethan had something invaluable, a purity of intention that could inspire change, even in someone like her, who was accustomed to the pressures of high-stakes decisions. In the meantime, Ethan remained unaware of the ripple effect his single act had caused. He continued his studies, worked extra hours when needed, and tried to manage his life as best as he could. He encountered challenges daily: finances, coursework, and the physical toll of working long hours. But he faced them with quiet determination. He found small joys in moments of human connection, whether it was a friend's smile, a kind word from a customer, or the satisfaction of completing a difficult task. These were the moments that kept him going. One afternoon, Vanessa visited a local community event sponsored by her company's foundation. She observed young people presenting projects, sharing ideas, and speaking about their aspirations. She felt a mix of pride and longing, hoping that someone like Ethan might be among them. She approached a few organizers, discreetly inquiring about hardworking students who were dedicated and showed exceptional character. They mentioned a few names, describing students who worked multiple jobs, studied diligently, and contributed positively to their communities. Vanessa listened carefully, noting every detail, trying to match the qualities she remembered from that rainy evening. Ethan, unaware of these inquiries, continued to make small choices each day that reflected his character. He helped a fellow student struggling with a heavy bag, stayed late at the cafe to cover a shift for a coworker, and volunteered occasionally when he could spare the time. Each action was a reflection of his values, not motivated by recognition or reward, but by a genuine desire to contribute positively. These moments, though seemingly ordinary, were what made him memorable to those who observed closely, even without his knowledge. Vanessa's determination to reconnect with Ethan grew stronger. She admired his resilience and authenticity, qualities that were rare and valuable in any person. She realized that she wanted to support him not out of obligation, but because she genuinely believed in his potential and wanted to see him succeed. It wasn't about influence or power. It was about recognizing and nurturing the goodness she had witnessed. As the weeks continued, the paths of Ethan and Vanessa remained parallel but separate, connected invisibly by the memory of a simple act of kindness. The jacket, the cold evening, and the brief conversation at the bus stop had created a bond neither fully understood yet. It was a reminder that human connections could be subtle but profound, that small gestures could leave lasting impressions, and that sometimes life had a way of weaving people together through unexpected circumstances. Ethan remained unaware of the attention he had drawn, focusing on the immediate challenges in front of him. Vanessa, meanwhile, continued to seek a way to make a meaningful connection, carefully navigating her role as a CEO and philanthropist while honoring the authenticity of the moment they had shared. Both were shaped by the same encounter, moving through their respective lives with the subtle influence of a small act of kindness that had resonated far beyond its initial moment. Weeks turned into a month, and the memory of that rainy evening continued to linger in both Vanessa's and Ethan's minds, albeit in different ways. Vanessa's curiosity had grown stronger, and she could not ignore the pull to find him again. She often reflected on the way he had acted so naturally, without expecting anything, and she realized how rare that kind of selfless kindness was. In a world dominated by ambition and the pursuit of personal gain, meeting someone so genuine felt like discovering a hidden treasure. She decided that the best way to reconnect with him was to do it indirectly at first. Vanessa arranged for her foundation to quietly look for students who demonstrated exceptional character, resilience, and need. She asked her team to focus on those who worked hard, maintained their studies, and showed kindness to others despite the pressures they faced. Her hope was that this system would naturally identify him, without her having to interfere too much or create an awkward situation. Ethan, meanwhile, remained oblivious to the network of attention that had begun to revolve around him. He was living his life day by day, trying to balance the demands of school, part-time work, and personal responsibilities. His routine was exhausting, but he had learned to manage it with determination. The jacket he had given to the woman on that rainy evening had faded from his immediate memory, becoming just one of many small gestures he had made in his life. Yet unknowingly, it had left a lasting impression that would soon change his world. One afternoon, as Ethan finished his shift at the cafe, he noticed a small flyer on the counter about a scholarship program for students facing financial difficulties. He picked it up, scanning the information carefully. The program offered financial support for tuition, living expenses, and even provided mentorship opportunities. Ethan felt a spark of hope. For the first time in a long while, he considered that someone out there might see his hard work and determination and recognize it. He decided to apply, gathering his documents and carefully filling out the application. He included his academic achievements, work experience, and a description of his life's challenges. He wrote honestly about his struggles, his need to support himself through school, and his dedication to helping others whenever he could. Filling out the application required vulnerability, but Ethan approached it with quiet courage, hoping that someone would see his sincerity. Vanessa, from her side, was quietly monitoring the scholarship submissions. When Ethan's application came in, it immediately caught her attention. Even without knowing his name or having met him again, she recognized the qualities she remembered from that rainy evening: sincerity, humility, and genuine kindness. She was struck by how his character shone through his words, a reflection of the young man she had briefly met at the bus stop. As the foundation team reviewed applications, Vanessa personally suggested that they consider Ethan for an interview and a potential mentorship. She wanted to meet him, not to impress or influence him, but to understand the person behind the qualities she admired. She hoped to see if the authenticity she had sensed in that brief encounter was reflected in his current life. It was not just a professional decision, it was personal, rooted in the admiration and curiosity that had grown over weeks of reflection. Ethan received an email a few days later, inviting him for an interview as part of the scholarship program. At first he was surprised, unsure if he was the right candidate. He hesitated, worrying that he might not be eligible or that someone else deserved the opportunity more. But after careful thought, he decided to attend, driven by the hope that this could change the course of his education and his future. The day of the interview arrived, and Ethan felt a mixture of nervousness and anticipation. He dressed neatly, trying to present himself as best as possible. He walked into the office where the interview was scheduled, not knowing that Vanessa was present. Vanessa, on her part, felt a quiet excitement mixed with apprehension. She would finally see him again, the young man whose simple act of kindness had made such a strong impression. When Ethan entered the room, Vanessa's heart skipped a beat. Their eyes met, and for a moment both were taken aback. She recognized him instantly, the same kind eyes and humble demeanor she had remembered. Ethan, realizing that this was the woman from the bus stop, felt a sudden rush of disbelief and curiosity. Neither had expected to meet under such circumstances, and yet the moment felt natural, almost as if it had been meant to happen. Vanessa greeted him warmly, acknowledging the previous encounter at the bus stop. She told him how she had remembered his kindness and how it had stayed with her. Ethan was surprised, humbled, and a little embarrassed. He had never considered that his small gesture could leave such a lasting impression. The conversation flowed naturally from there, with Vanessa asking about his life, his studies, and his work. Ethan answered honestly, sharing his struggles, his dreams, and his small victories. Vanessa listened intently, absorbing every word, appreciating his authenticity and determination. The interview was not just an evaluation, it was a conversation. Vanessa asked questions about his values, how he approached challenges, and what inspired him to keep moving forward despite difficulties. Ethan spoke openly about the importance of integrity, helping others, and striving for personal growth. Vanessa was impressed by his insights and the quiet strength he exhibited. It was clear that he was not only hardworking, but also thoughtful and compassionate. After the interview, Vanessa arranged for Ethan to receive a scholarship that covered his tuition and living expenses. She also offered him an internship at her company, providing a chance to gain experience, mentorship, and exposure to a professional environment. Ethan was overwhelmed, grateful, and slightly nervous. He had not expected such support, and yet he felt a deep sense of hope and determination. This opportunity was not just about financial relief. It was a chance to grow, to explore his potential, and to learn from someone he already respected. In the weeks that followed, Ethan began his internship, working closely with Vanessa and her team. He faced challenges, learned new skills, and discovered the complexities of the professional world. Vanessa continued to mentor him, providing guidance, encouragement, and insight without imposing her influence. She admired his humility, his willingness to learn, and his dedication to both his work and personal growth. As Ethan adjusted to his new responsibilities, he found that the internship was shaping him in unexpected ways. He was gaining confidence, building networks, and learning to navigate situations that once seemed intimidating. His perspective on life was broadening, and he began to dream bigger than he had before. The support from Vanessa and the foundation gave him the space to focus on his ambitions, knowing that someone believed in his potential. Vanessa, observing his progress, felt a sense of fulfillment. The decision to help him had been driven by admiration for his character, and watching him grow confirmed that her instincts had been right. She realized that true talent and value often exist in people who are overlooked by the world, and that recognizing and nurturing such individuals could create meaningful change. Through this experience, both Ethan and Vanessa began to see the profound impact of a simple act of kindness. The jacket at the bus stop had been more than a gesture. It had set in motion a series of events that would shape both of their lives. For Ethan, it opened doors and provided support that he had not imagined possible. For Vanessa, it reaffirmed her belief in the importance of genuine human connection and the value of recognizing goodness when she encountered it. As they continued to work together, a mutual respect and understanding developed. Vanessa admired Ethan's resilience, integrity, and humility. Ethan admired Vanessa's insight, generosity, and ability to inspire others without demanding recognition. Their interactions were based on trust, shared values, and a growing understanding of each other's character. This connection, rooted in that rainy evening at the bus stop, continued to deepen, proving that small acts of kindness could have far-reaching and unexpected consequences. In the end, Part 3 of their journey highlighted the power of human connection, perseverance, and the importance of recognizing potential in unexpected places. Ethan's life was beginning to change, guided by mentorship, opportunity, and his own determination. Vanessa's perspective on life and leadership was enriched by her encounter with someone who embodied the principles of authenticity and compassion. Together, they demonstrated that genuine gestures, no matter how small, could create ripple effects that transformed lives, shaped futures, and left lasting impressions on the hearts of those involved. Ethan's life was beginning to transform in ways he could never have imagined. The scholarship eased his financial burdens, allowing him to focus more on his studies and personal growth, rather than constantly worrying about paying tuition or making ends meet. The internship at Vanessa's company introduced him to an environment that was both challenging and inspiring. Every day he learned something new, from technical skills to teamwork and problem-solving. He was discovering his own potential and realizing that the world was wider and more complex than he had ever thought. At first, Ethan was nervous in the corporate setting. He worried that his lack of experience and education would make him seem inadequate. However, he quickly realized that the people around him valued honesty, effort, and willingness to learn as much as they valued formal credentials. Vanessa, in particular, was patient and encouraging. She would take time to explain concepts, offer guidance on projects, and ask for his input in ways that made him feel respected and valued. It was an experience unlike anything he had encountered before. Vanessa watched Ethan's progress with a mixture of pride and admiration. She had seen many young professionals come and go, but Ethan was different. He was diligent, thoughtful, and consistently showed empathy towards others. He was not seeking recognition or reward. His motivation came from a desire to learn and contribute. His presence reminded her that true talent and integrity often exist in unexpected places, and that recognizing and nurturing it could create meaningful change. Ethan began to take on more responsibilities. He worked on projects that initially seemed overwhelming, but he approached them with focus and determination. Whenever he made mistakes, he saw them as learning opportunities rather than failures. Vanessa provided constructive feedback, helping him see his potential while encouraging him to overcome challenges. Slowly, he became more confident, gaining skills that would be invaluable in his future career. Outside of work, Ethan's daily life was also improving. The scholarship allowed him to afford better study materials and a quieter place to focus. He could occasionally take breaks without the constant worry about money. While he still worked part-time, it was no longer the constant source of stress it had once been. The support he received gave him the freedom to think about his goals and dreams, and for the first time, he felt like he had a real chance to shape his future. Vanessa continued to mentor him carefully, making sure that the guidance she offered was empowering rather than controlling. She wanted him to develop independence and confidence, not rely on her as a crutch. Their relationship became one of mutual respect and trust. Ethan admired her ability to lead with integrity and care, while Vanessa admired his humility and dedication. It was a rare connection, rooted in mutual recognition of character rather than social status or power. As weeks passed, Ethan also began to observe the culture of the company and the way Vanessa led her team. He noticed that she valued input from everyone, regardless of position, and that she treated employees with respect and fairness. This inspired him to think about leadership in a new way, understanding that true influence comes from respect, empathy, and integrity, rather than authority or wealth alone. Vanessa's example became a model for the kind of person he aspired to be. Meanwhile, Vanessa saw Ethan's growth as a reflection of the potential in all young people who are given opportunity and guidance. She realized that sometimes all it takes is a little support and encouragement to help someone reveal their true capabilities. Watching him tackle challenges with determination, learning from mistakes, and growing as a person reinforced her belief in the value of mentorship and the impact of small acts of kindness. Ethan's confidence grew steadily. He began to take initiative on projects, suggesting improvements and offering creative solutions. His colleagues noticed his commitment and work ethic, and he gradually earned their trust and respect. What started as a small internship had now become a significant stepping stone for his career, and he felt a sense of pride in his achievements. He could see how far he had come from the young man who had been standing in the cold, offering his jacket to a stranger. Vanessa, observing these changes, felt a quiet satisfaction. The connection that had started with a simple act of kindness had developed into something deeper and more meaningful. It reminded her of the importance of noticing and valuing the character of people, and how giving support could empower someone to reach heights they never thought possible. She knew that Ethan's potential was just beginning to unfold, and she felt honored to be a part of that journey. As Ethan became more comfortable in his new role, he also began to take more initiative in other areas of his life. He started volunteering occasionally, using his experiences and skills to help others. He shared his time and knowledge with younger students who faced similar challenges, mentoring them in ways that echoed the support he had received. He found joy in giving back, realizing that his journey was not just about personal success but about helping others along the way. Vanessa encouraged this as well. She suggested opportunities where Ethan could participate in community projects sponsored by her company. She wanted him to see the impact of his actions on others, and to understand the value of using one's position and skills for positive change. Ethan embraced these opportunities, feeling a sense of purpose and fulfillment that went beyond his studies and work. The bond between Ethan and Vanessa continued to strengthen. They shared discussions about life values and goals. Vanessa often asked about his dreams and aspirations, guiding him to think strategically about his future, while respecting his own decisions. Ethan, in turn, shared his thoughts and experiences openly, appreciating Vanessa's guidance and perspective. Their interactions were always respectful, supportive, and grounded in mutual admiration. Ethan's transformation was not just professional, but personal. He began to carry himself with more confidence, believing in his own abilities and trusting in his judgment. He felt empowered to take on challenges that had once seemed impossible, and approached his daily life with renewed determination. The combination of mentorship, opportunity, and his own hard work created a momentum that propelled him forward. Vanessa, seeing Ethan's growth, reflected on the significance of that rainy evening at the bus stop. A simple act of giving a jacket had set in motion a series of events that neither of them could have predicted. It reminded her that life often works in mysterious ways, and that small gestures of kindness can have profound and lasting effects. She felt grateful to have witnessed the impact of her support on someone so deserving. Ethan, on the other hand, realized the importance of the opportunities he had been given and the mentorship he had received. He knew that his hard work was essential, but he also recognized that guidance and encouragement could accelerate growth in ways that were otherwise difficult to achieve. He felt a deep sense of gratitude toward Vanessa, not just for the scholarship and internship, but for believing in him and providing the space to develop his potential. As the internship progressed, Ethan faced new challenges that tested his skills and patience. He encountered complex projects that required creative thinking and teamwork. At times he felt overwhelmed, but he remembered the lessons he had learned from Vanessa about perseverance, problem-solving, and maintaining integrity under pressure. He applied these lessons consistently, gradually mastering tasks that once seemed impossible. His confidence grew, and he became an integral part of the team, respected by colleagues and supervisors alike. Vanessa continued to support Ethan, providing guidance when necessary, but also allowing him the freedom to make decisions and learn from experience. She recognized that true mentorship involved balancing support with independence, and she trusted that Ethan would rise to the challenges presented to him. Watching him navigate the professional world with humility and determination reinforced her belief in the value of human connection and the importance of nurturing potential. Outside the office, Ethan also began to see changes in his personal life. With financial stress reduced and confidence increased, he found more time to focus on hobbies, personal development, and relationships. He built stronger friendships, engaged in community activities, and developed a deeper sense of self-awareness. The transformation was gradual but profound, affecting multiple aspects of his life. Vanessa, reflecting on these changes, felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The initial encounter at the bus stop had been fleeting, yet it had led to a meaningful connection that had transformed both their lives. She realized that genuine human kindness, when recognized and nurtured, could create opportunities, inspire growth, and foster lasting relationships. It was a lesson she would carry forward, influencing how she approached leadership, mentorship, and personal connections in the future. As Ethan's internship continued, he began to mentor others in small ways, sharing his experiences and encouraging peers to strive for their goals. He understood the value of guidance and support, and he wanted to pay it forward. His actions demonstrated that leadership and influence were not limited to positions of power, but could be expressed through empathy, support, and example. Vanessa watched these developments with quiet pride, seeing the ripple effect of her mentorship and the lasting impact of a single act of kindness. In conclusion, Part 4 of Ethan and Vanessa's journey highlighted growth, mentorship, and the transformative power of opportunity. Ethan's life was evolving, shaped by support, hard work, and his own determination, while Vanessa's perspective on leadership and human connection was enriched by witnessing his development. The bond they shared, rooted in a simple gesture at a rainy bus stop, continued to deepen, demonstrating that genuine acts of kindness and support could create lasting, meaningful change in the lives of others. Months passed, and Ethan had grown into his new life in ways he had never imagined possible. The scholarship allowed him to focus fully on his studies, giving him the opportunity to explore subjects that interested him deeply, rather than just chasing the bare necessities to survive. The internship with Vanessa's company had evolved from a simple learning experience into something much more meaningful. He was contributing to real projects, collaborating with teams, and gaining insight into a world that had once seemed far beyond his reach. Every challenge, every project, every meeting was a lesson, and he approached them with determination, humility, and the quiet confidence that came from seeing his own progress. Ethan's perspective on life had begun to shift. Before the scholarship and internship, he had been focused mainly on survival, making it through school, keeping up with work, and handling the constant worry about money. Now, with support and guidance, he could think about long-term goals, the kind of life he wanted to build and the kind of person he wanted to become. He began setting goals for himself, both in his education and in his personal development. He knew he had the potential to accomplish more than he had once imagined, and that realization filled him with a mix of excitement and responsibility. Vanessa continued to mentor him closely, but always in a way that encouraged independence and self-reliance. She offered advice, shared experiences from her own life, and provided insights into professional and personal growth. Yet she never imposed her ideas. Instead, she asked thoughtful questions that encouraged Ethan to reflect, analyze, and decide for himself. Her guidance became a steady support in his life, helping him navigate both the challenges of his internship and the broader journey of growing into adulthood. Through their interactions, Ethan and Vanessa formed a bond rooted in trust and mutual respect. They often discussed values, ethics, and the importance of maintaining integrity in all areas of life. Vanessa was impressed by Ethan's sincerity, his commitment to helping others, and the thoughtfulness he applied to even small decisions. Ethan, in turn, admired Vanessa's vision, her patience, and the way she used her position not to dominate but to empower others. Their connection went beyond professional mentoring. It became a meaningful human relationship built on admiration, empathy, and understanding. One of the most significant lessons Ethan learned during this time was the power of small actions. He saw firsthand how a simple act of kindness could ripple outwards, influencing people in ways that were not immediately visible. This understanding shaped the way he approached interactions, whether in the workplace, at school, or in his community. He began volunteering more frequently, offering guidance to younger students and helping colleagues whenever he could. He understood that leadership was not just about authority, but about influence, compassion, and the ability to inspire positive change. Vanessa observed these developments with a quiet sense of pride. The transformation in Ethan reaffirmed her belief that talent, integrity, and kindness were often found in places that might be overlooked by society. She realized that recognizing and nurturing such potential could have profound effects, not only on an individual, but on the broader community. Watching Ethan take the lessons he had received and use them to grow and help others was deeply rewarding. It reminded her of the evening they had first met, the rainy bus stop, the jacket, and the unexpected spark of human connection that had initiated this journey. As the internship continued, Ethan was presented with opportunities to take on leadership roles within projects. Initially, he was hesitant, unsure if he was ready to step into a position that required making decisions and guiding others. However, Vanessa encouraged him, offering advice and reassurance while allowing him to take ownership of the work. Gradually, he grew into the role, learning to balance responsibility with collaboration, making thoughtful decisions, and motivating his team. His confidence grew, and he began to see himself as capable of handling challenges that once seemed insurmountable. In parallel, Ethan maintained his academic progress. With the financial pressure eased by the scholarship, he could dedicate more time to studying, participating in class discussions, and pursuing projects that interested him. His academic performance improved, reflecting both his natural ability and the new opportunities that allowed him to focus. He began to feel a sense of stability and direction that had been missing from his life before this pivotal moment at the bus stop. Outside of work and school, Ethan's personal life also flourished. He developed stronger relationships with friends and family, sharing his experiences and supporting those around him. He began to recognize the importance of community, empathy, and giving back. His acts of kindness, once instinctive and small, became more intentional and meaningful, reflecting the lessons he had learned from both his own experiences and Vanessa's mentorship. He understood that influence and impact were not measured solely by success or recognition, but by the positive difference one could make in the lives of others. Vanessa, witnessing this growth, felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had seen many young professionals come and go, but Ethan was unique. His resilience, integrity, and compassion made him stand out, and the development she had observed confirmed that the choice to support him had been meaningful. She reflected on the impact that a simple gesture, the jacket on a rainy evening, had had, not only on Ethan's life but on her own perspective about human connection and the potential of individuals. One afternoon, after a particularly productive week at the company, Vanessa invited Ethan to a quiet meeting to discuss his progress and future goals. They talked about his aspirations, the projects he hoped to tackle, and the ways he wanted to contribute to the community. Vanessa provided insight and guidance, helping him refine his plans while ensuring that he retained ownership of his vision. Ethan felt encouraged and supported, yet also motivated to push himself further, confident in his abilities and inspired by the trust placed in him. As time went on, Ethan's contributions began to gain recognition within the company. His innovative ideas, Dedication to teamwork and commitment to ethical practices made him a valued member of the team. Colleagues admired his work ethic and his willingness to help others, and he became a quiet source of inspiration for those around him. This recognition was gratifying, but Ethan remained humble, remembering the lessons of integrity and kindness that had guided him from the very beginning. Vanessa continued to provide mentorship, balancing guidance with space for independence. She watched Ethan grow into a capable, confident, and thoughtful young professional. Their relationship deepened into a meaningful bond that transcended the typical mentor-mentee dynamic. They respected each other's perspectives, valued each other's insights, and shared a quiet understanding rooted in the initial connection that had begun at the bus stop months earlier. Ethan also began to reflect on the journey that had led him to this point. From the shivering young man waiting at the bus stop, he had grown into someone capable of shaping his own future and positively impacting the lives of others. He understood that opportunities could arise unexpectedly, and that small actions, like offering a jacket to someone in need, could set in motion events that changed life's trajectory. This realization inspired him to continue acting with kindness and integrity, knowing that even the smallest gestures could have profound effects. Vanessa, too, reflected on the significance of their journey. The encounter had reminded her that genuine human connection could transcend social and professional boundaries. The simplicity of a kind act had revealed character, opened doors, and created a bond that neither of them could have predicted. It reinforced her belief in the importance of noticing, valuing, and nurturing the potential in others, and it highlighted the transformative power of compassion and empathy in both personal and professional contexts. As the months passed, Ethan's life continued to flourish. He balanced school, work, and personal development with increasing confidence and skill. He continued to mentor younger students, volunteer in the community, and participate in projects that allowed him to apply his knowledge and talents. The lessons he had learned from Vanessa and his own experiences became guiding principles in his life. Perseverance, kindness, integrity, and the importance of lifting others as he climbed. Vanessa remained a constant source of support and guidance, offering encouragement and insight while respecting Ethan's independence. She took pride in seeing him succeed and grow, understanding that her role was not to dictate his path but to provide the tools, opportunities, and mentorship that allowed him to reach his potential. The bond between them remained rooted in respect, trust, and shared values, a connection that had started with a small, seemingly ordinary act of kindness on a rainy evening. In the end, Part 5 highlights the culmination of Ethan's journey from a struggling student to a confident, capable individual, shaped by mentorship, opportunity, and his own perseverance. Vanessa's guidance and support, combined with the initial spark of human connection, transformed both their lives. The story illustrates that small acts of kindness can create ripple effects far beyond their immediate moment, influencing lives, shaping futures, and fostering meaningful connections that endure. The simple gesture of offering a jacket on a cold evening became a symbol of empathy, opportunity, and the transformative power of human connection, leaving a lasting impact on both Ethan and Vanessa, and inspiring them to continue acting with integrity, compassion, and purpose in their respective lives. Ethan's journey continued, and the changes in his life were now deeply rooted in the experiences he had gained through the scholarship, internship, and the mentorship from Vanessa. The growth he experienced was no longer just professional, it was personal, emotional, and mental. Each day brought new challenges, but he had developed a sense of resilience and confidence that allowed him to navigate them with calm determination.